Great. Hi, Robert. How are you today? My name is Tony. We're both writing the book Uncovered. We've done chapter of the book Uncovered 2021. And I'd just like you, if you could just share with us a little bit about yourself and get 60 seconds about yourself so people get to know who you are.
Okay, well, the brief version is that I started in business at age 19
Hmm.
in a very tough world. Um, I had invented a corrosion prevention process that could be used to prevent vehicles corroding. It happened because my dad had a car less than 3 years old and it was falling apart from corrosion. It used to be a very big problem. Cars would be scrapped after 6 to 8 years. I actually was intending to become a car designer and taking a place at the Royal College of Art, which is the premier place for doing that in the world. Certainly then, I think still today. And but instead, I spoke to vehicle manufacturers to look at why they weren't doing more to prevent vehicles from corroding. And basically, they were not interested in talking about the subject because for commercial reasons, because they believed that if cars lasted longer, they wouldn't sell as many, and they were totally opposed to the idea. Nonetheless, it
Hmm.
was a problem that needed solving, and since I solved it, somebody suggested to me I should go into business on my own. Well, I had nothing. I had no capital. I had no experience. I was 19 years old. I was going into a very cynical industry, and I had my age was against me, and no track record, of course.
Hmm.
So I did. I lived on fresh air for a long time. I had never sold anything before in my life. I had to sell this idea to car dealers for them to sell it to their car buyers. And I succeeded to some degree. But the only thing I had that helped me with that was that when I was 16, my dad had given me a book, which a lot of people have heard of, called How to Win Friends and Influence People. That is the only
Yeah.
thing I knew about selling anything, and that is how I went out and approached it. So I would go one car dealership at a time, developing relationships with them, getting them as customers. But I had to, they were very cynical, of course, because of my age. But so with this, I learnt that I had to outperform everybody else. I had to do better than everybody else. I had to have the answers. I had to demonstrate that I could do something better. And so I worked hard to achieve that. And I always did more than I had to do. And actually, a big breakthrough came when I started using medical endoscopes to overcome skepticism, so they could look inside the closed parts of car bodies to see the protection that has been applied. And that then convinced a lot of people. And there were other things I did as well. Anyway, long story short, in about 3 years, we had 40% penetration of the corner of the country where I was operating of all
Hmm.
vehicles sold, which was very high. I didn't realize how high until I started getting big names coming to see me, beating a path to my door because we had this penetration of the market. And I discovered then that every competitor combined had 8% share of the market. That was news to me. But we were doing very well, and I started getting offers from people because we had developed a much better process. Companies like Valvoline Oil Company, 3M, Burma Castrol came to my door, knocking on the door, and interested in doing business with us or buying me. I had a lot of buyout offers, and I still have the letters on file. I did do a deal with Burma Castrol. There were other companies as well, by the way, but I did do a deal with Burma Castrol where they wanted us to use their products. We tested their products, we didn't like them, but they then said, well, look, we will manufacture products exclusively for you to your specification, which nobody else in the world can use. And they even allowed us to use the Castrol name. In
Wow.
120 years they've been around, no company has ever done that before or since. So it's
Hmm.
the only time in their history that's happened. That gave us a lot of credibility. About the same time, I hired I looked for a PR consultant, the best PR consultant there was. I found one. It was eye-wateringly expensive. It was £150,000 a year just for the retainer. No way we could afford it. But I also believed that if he could do what I believed he could do, it would really be cheap at the price. And it did turn out to be that. Because within 2 weeks of hiring him, I had an interview with the top business journalist on the Sunday Times, which was like the top newspaper with global reach. And he wrote a third of a page article, which appeared a couple of weeks later on a Sunday. And the phone started ringing that day and it didn't stop. That took my business global.
Wow.
Literally, yeah, it was just amazing.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, so we then opened up very, very quickly in Malaysia and Singapore and United Arab Emirates and Switzerland and Bermuda and other places. not Bermuda. Yes, it was Bermuda. And so that business went global. We achieved some awards. We achieved some standards that nobody else in the industry could achieve. That increased our credibility. We put the fear of God into our competition, and this all really stemmed from me always doing more than anybody could ever expect because I had to compensate for my age. And so it went, and I've always done that since. Alongside that, when I was 23, I invented the panoramic glass sunroof for cars, and so a second business was born. And in we started making these in the UK and also in the United States. It was very cheap to make them in the United States in those days. It's like getting things made in China today. That was where you could get them things made very cheaply, and we were then selling these all over the world. So that went global, became a very successful product. No decent car wouldn't have one these days. Uh,
Hmm.
that's where it's reached. Um, Along the way, um, I did run into a very big problem. I'd had buyout offers from various companies or merger offers, which we'd turned down. But we had introduced the second generation of our sunroof, which was much better than the first one. And we used a special bonding technique to make this thing, which really was a big advance.
Hmm.
And the minute our marketplace saw it, they wanted it. We got tens of millions of pounds worth of orders. The problem was they were not interested in the existing one anymore. As soon as they seen the new one, they had to have that one, and the old one was no longer relevant. And so our sales dropped off a cliff while we tried to ramp up the production of the new one. But the problem was that the special bonding technique could only be done by one company in the world at that time. It's probably quite commonplace now.
Hmm.
But at that time, only one company could do it. And they could not get anywhere close to the production volumes that we needed for all the orders we'd received. So in the meantime, we were paying for production line time, staffing, components, all the other things that we would need to, cover all the orders we'd had. And they could only deliver a very small number of finished units to us because they couldn't keep up the numbers. Now, this created a really serious problem for us. It was costing 1 million a month. First I heard of it was I was in the States in California, but just boarding a plane to go to Mexico on the way to Bermuda, when I was told, come back immediately, urgent, you just got to come straight back. We've got a serious problem here. Could have put us out of business. And so I went back and not sure what to do. But one of the companies that had approached me previously was a division of a conglomerate, one of the largest conglomerates in Europe. And I'd politely declined them at the time. But I thought, okay, how are we going to get out of this mess? It's costing £1 million a month. I don't have £1 million to do it. Banks are not going to be that generous. So I had to do something about it. So I called them. They were based in Sweden, and I said, "Are you still interested?" And they said, "Well, we're sending over our executive jet to get you." And they did, and we had a meeting, and we did a deal. The formalities took a few weeks, but the deal was basically done. Then the formalities followed. We merged their business or their division with my business. And the next 4 years, I worked hard within that organization now to help it become number one in the world in its field. So in 4 years, it became number one in the world in its field. And so at this stage, a few people had seen me do this a few times, and they seem to believe that I knew how to turn business into niche leaders. And that's what I've always been since.
Hmm.
So the next thing really was that um, I got companies who had seen what I'd done, who wanted me to help them do the same sort of thing. And the companies I worked with, we had successes with most of them, but I felt imposter syndrome because I was completely self-taught. I had no labels for anything I did. I had no formal qualifications for anything I did. But the thing seemed to work. And it was years later that somebody explained to me why it was working and why they couldn't get MBAs and things like this to produce the results that I was producing. I didn't understand why they couldn't at the time, but it turns out that most people in business, if they have a problem, they look within their own industry, within the places they know for the
Hmm.
answers. And if they can't find the answers there, they can't find the answers. But what I did, which was second nature to me, but for some reason people didn't do this, was I would look in unrelated places. I'd look in completely different industries. And I'd often find that the solution to their problem lay in something another industry had been doing for decades. And they
Hmm.
well refined, it works. They could just be adapted and used in an industry where it hasn't been used before. and then it has the impact of an atom bomb. So they thought I was a genius, and that's not genius. I thought, and when somebody said to me, "Well, this is what you do that other people don't do," I said, "Really? I mean, I can't believe that." No, they said, "Don't do it. People don't do that." Well, I'm sure some people do, but anyway, I was doing that, and I never thought twice about it. So that then actually changed things for me. I decided, okay, I don't need to do an MBA after all. And I decided instead to get to know some of the people who had influenced me, who'd written books that I thought were really, top books. And I did get to know what it was originally. I was looking to maybe connect with about 20 or 30 of them. And I did connect with them. And some of them I got to know very well. Some of them I used to interact with regularly over periods of time, sometimes, even once a week or more. Some of them a bit less regularly. And then over time, that actually grew to about 550 different people, all top thought leaders in the world who were really, really outstanding at what they did. And they fell into two different types of people. You've got the ones who are very, very generous with their time, and the ones who are very protective about
Mm.
what they know. The ones that are very protective of what they know, they are the self-proclaimed authorities. They're the self-proclaimed gurus, and the world is full of them. And they actually have a very they probably think they are outstanding, but they're not, and they're very protective about what they do know. They don't give much away. But the people who are the genuine authorities, you can always tell them because they're very generous with their knowledge. They share that knowledge very, very generously because they know that the more you know about something, the more there is to know about it. And therefore, they'll very
Mhm.
happily share what they know. They're spreading their word, if you like, their life work. And my strength was really taking that know-how and mapping it all. And so I started mind mapping all of this information. I started looking at how you combine things together to make something better than the sum of its parts. And I was able to pull together from these people some amazing things. I learned labels for things I've been doing. I learned a lot more labels as well. I learned a lot of things that were really useful. And that became my sort of baseline, and I've been building on it. Now, I think I probably thought at the time I might spend about a year doing this, but it hasn't stopped now. It's about 30 years later, so I'm still doing it.
Mm.
And I'm still building that know-how. Anyway, long story short, I started mentoring entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs wanted to know what I'd learnt. And very early on, I discovered something which was really important. And people don't seem to know this. And that is that um, when somebody comes to you, they come to you because they've got a problem they want to solve. So in my case, it's about growing a business. It might be about a particular strategy they need to use, and they've different people they could go to. Some of them end up coming to me, and I would find that we would help them solve the problem. We would give them what they need to solve the problem. So that's all great. But then it was very obvious to me with my experience and my background at this stage, what they needed to do next to build on what they had just done. But it wasn't obvious to them because they came just to solve the problem. They couldn't see the whole picture. So it could take sometimes 6 months, 9 months, a year, talking to them to convince them that this is what they need to do because you know it's going to make a big difference to them. And every agency or coach or consultancy company has this problem with their clients. They can see what needs to be done next, but it doesn't happen. And so I figured out, okay, the only difference really between a lot of these clients and me is that on this particular subject matter, I know a whole lot more than they do. And if they knew what I knew, this would be a no-brainer to actually take this next step. So what I decided to do was actually take about 4 million pages of notes I had and turn this into 63 core topics which I condensed right down that I could deliver over 3 days in a very live intensive workshop. And we did this, and I also developed special computer software to go with it. And the computer software, and everybody would then use this when they went through this workshop. The computer software would actually gather all of their ideas and thoughts. Because as I was going through this at a high level of intensity, I was saying before this has a chance to go from your head, go past your ears once and be lost forever. I want you to just capture all of the thoughts and the ideas and the light bulb moments you have as you go
Mhm.
through this, and you can capture it in this software, and that software was then building a blueprint specific to them and their business in the background. And it was also looking, going by asking certain questions, we were able to establish which of the ideas would be more relevant to them than others. And we're in the background looking at what things are going to be easier for them to do, which are going to take less time, effort, manpower, money, and risk, but going to give the best results. And so all of this is happening in the background. I would deliver this workshop, and I would say, you cannot work with me. We won't work with you to solve your problem unless you go through this workshop first. We charge them a sum of money for doing that, but we say to them, we'll give you a 365-day guarantee. And if
Wow.
at the end, if the end of 12 months you don't believe you had value from it, we'll give you a full refund on it. Never had to do it once, never once in 20 something years. So I think
Excellent.
that tells you the value people got from it. In fact, we had 99.7% exceeded expectations. So
Wow.
it was really a very nice result. But what happened was a complete transformation because had this blueprint afterwards. They could see the impact because the software is building up a picture based on their data and based on their assessment of each topic we covered. And we said, be very, very conservative. And they could see the impact of those things at the end of it. And we'd say, okay, now press this button and look at what the impact of the top four strategies are. What can you see there? And people say, oh my God, that's amazing. Um, now that I look at this, this is the most obvious thing in the world. This is really obvious. And I say, well, how long would it have taken you to have worked out that you need to do that? And they say to me, some people say to me, it would take me 5 years, 10 years, 20 years to do this. One person said it would take 50 years to figure this out on my own. But now it's obvious as soon as I see it. And this this rewired people's minds. It completely changed things because now they had a perspective. They could see the end-to-end picture. They could see how to go take their business from where it is now to where it is a leader in its niche. And they believed that they could do it. So I'd say to them, what are you seeing there? Then they tell me and they say, do you think you can do that? Yeah, I know I can do it. I know I can do that. I know I can do that in the next 3 months. And that could be doubling, tripling, quadrupling their business in many cases.
Hmm.
And it would go on like that. So this was a major breakthrough. And we started getting results that nobody else was getting. People couldn't understand how we got the results we were getting. A lot of those businesses became leaders in their niche. A lot of them started winning all the top awards in their industry year after year. A lot of them started, well, then we're attracting offers for 8 or 9 figure exits, and a lot of them did sell out their businesses, having changed it dramatically. I'll just give you, let's say, two or three very quick examples. Um, the company, we had a company in the northeast of England who were doing hiring of specialist instruments for industry. And they were just a small regional company. They then went national. They then went to Germany. They then went to Thailand. And then they were very much more visible in the marketplace. A big American company wanting a foothold in the UK market then made them an offer they couldn't refuse, 8 figure offer. And they took it. Another time, there was a guy who he was 23 when I met him, set up a spare bedroom business with £3,000. Sports nutrition expert. He was advising a lot of top athletes. 4 years after I started working with him, he was number one sports nutrition company in Europe. After six
Wow.
years, he won the Ernst& Young National Entrepreneur of the Year award. And that year, the runner-up was actually another one of my clients. He then sold a stake in the business for £10 million. He sold another stake a little bit later for £75 million. And then eventually GlaxoSmithKline bought the business from him for 168 million pounds. And then he started to indulge in his big passion, which was setting land speed records in
Hmm.
British and global land speed records. And unfortunately, he was killed in one of those land speed
Okay.
records. But his legacy lives on. He was an amazing guy. But this is the kind of things that was happening. So sorry, this is a bit longer than I think than you wanted, but we move it forward. We realized we were sitting on something with incredible potential worldwide that could change things for people. We did an audit on 442 clients, and we discovered some very interesting things from this audit. We discovered that we only measured the impact of the top 8 strategies for each of those businesses. But the average growth that those businesses were projecting from just those top 8 strategies was 628%. Now, that is a major contrast with what most businesses achieve. Less than 1% of businesses in the UK achieve even 10% annual growth. So that was a very big difference. Now, if anybody had asked me at that time to guess what is the total value, how much extra revenues have you achieved for those companies, my guess would have been 200 or 300 million pounds, something in that order. And that would have been a very credible result. Anybody who can tell you that they've had that difference, it's very respectable. However, it wasn't. When we actually added up, it was 2.78 billion pounds. We worked
Wow.
out that about 1.4 million businesses in the UK were in our target market. And if 1% of them, just 1% of them, achieve the same results, it would add 100 billion to the UK economy and it would give employment for another million people. So this was a bit of a surprise to me, but there we were. This is what we were sitting on. So we then made a decision that we needed to develop a scalable infrastructure, some way that we could take this out to a much wider world. And I knew kind of what we needed to do. And I thought I gave myself a year to do it, but I very quickly discovered I couldn't carry on the mentoring and develop that. It's like riding two horses at once. You can't really do it
Hmm.
unless you're a very skilled acrobat. Well, I wasn't. So, um, so we actually decided to give up the mentoring and focus on developing this for the next year. And that was our only income stream. So all income stopped. And I thought, okay, I'll see this through over the next year. But it didn't take a year. It took a lot longer. It took more than 5 years. Every time we completely built something, taking all the best advice we could get, using the best platforms, the best software, integrating all the best things, doing all of this, we'd find it wouldn't work for some reason, and it would fall over. It would be unreliable. A very quick example of this is we had some software which was considered the best we could use for a particular job, and we spent a year building things around it, only to find when it went live that it was falling over. The reason was we were then told, which we were never told before, despite bringing the best people in, the people from the company itself that were working with us, they were then told it can only process one command an hour.
An
You
hour.
mean one command an hour, whereas other software we're using, it would process 100 commands in about 2 seconds. So that meant we had to scrap everything we'd done and start all over
Wow.
again. Very expensive, very time consuming, very frustrating. Had to do that at least 4 times. And so what I thought was going to be a year was now 4 years. And now I'm in a problem because I had to use everything. I had to sell everything I owned. I had to use everything I owned in order to do this. So
Hmm.
I sold the house I lived in. I sold a rental property I owned. I used my inheritance. I used I used basically I used everything I had. I used all my life savings. I sort of then maxed out all my credit cards just to survive. I put in 35,000 hours unpaid over 5 years, working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, without a break
Wow.
to pull this together. Now, in the process of all of this, what was putting it together was not only the infrastructure that did finally work, by the way, and we tested it for a year with clients in different parts of the world. Um, but I was also the know-how behind it. So I had written for my mentoring clients 64 books. And those 64 books were never available to the public, but they set out, each one covered a different strategy. And those books were very in-depth. And some of them covered subjects that nobody's ever written about before. And they were really, really helpful to my clients. So anyway, I visited a business school one time, and one of the top business schools in Europe. And I was really shocked to discover that the case studies they were using with their students were 20 to 30 years out of date.
Mm.
And it's not just them. This is common. A lot of these are 20, 30 years out of date. The world has changed. It's changing really rapidly. It's never changed more rapidly than it is now. So something 20 to 30 years ago, before people, long before people used smartphones, they didn't even use computers particularly very much back then. So the world has changed. The internet wasn't functioning. Google wasn't functioning at that
Mm.
stage. And this is what they're teaching today. I mean, this is crazy. So I
Mm.
decided I needed to rewrite my 64 books. So I did that. But when I finished writing those books, it didn't stop there. And it went on to the, I had lots of other things. I'm thinking I need to do something about this, I need to do something about that. It ended up that I wrote 230 books.
Wow.
Um, and I had no idea quite what I'd achieved. I was doing it to answer my own questions, to make sure I had everything I needed for any client that would need any question answered. So about a year ago, this was suddenly recognized as probably the biggest body of work the biggest and the most up-to-date body of work that exists in the world. Even places like Harvard University have got a curriculum that hasn't changed for about 30 years. So, the universities are interested in this. the businesses all over the world are interested in this. And we had something that was really, really valuable, which I had never set out to accomplish. I didn't know I was doing it, but that's what it turned out to be, and that's what we created. And in some ways, this goes into another area. But what then happened was one of my clients, who's very, very clued up guy, was on the board of a major consultancy that has global clients. And he said, and we were talking about this body of work because I was talking about it to him every day. We were discussing these things every day in our interactions. And he says, and he's a contributor to Oxford Brookes University for their business degrees and things like this. Very, very clued up guy. And he said to me, "This is hands down the best work the best that is in the world in this field. I've seen it all. This is the best there is." I am a director of this consultancy. We are developing a very advanced AI enhanced training platform for businesses, which will provide the entire spectrum of training that any business will need. And we are looking for the very best content in the world to put on this platform. It's years ahead of anything else, and we want this content because this is the best in the world, hands down.
Mhm.
Actually, this guy has since become the managing director of that consultancy. But anyway, we were then given exclusivity. We are the exclusive suppliers of business growth and marketing know-how for this platform, which is not yet launched. It will be launched sometime in 2025. The first version has been built. They're being fine-tuned at the moment. And at some stage when that happens, that's going to suddenly start generating revenues when I had none.
Mhm.
This period of putting all this stuff together, really hard work with some other very complicated issues that I had to deal with at the same time, outside of what I was trying to get done, and some very distressing things as well that were happening. But I had to deal with all of these things, fight many battles on many different fronts, and but at the end of it is I've created something that is very useful to the world. Some stage that will start generating income through that particular relationship, and they will be distributing it through major recruitment companies, global recruitment companies, um, professional service firms, universities, private equity companies, and others who will be using it for all of their own internal training, but they also will be promoting it to all of their clients and their networks of contacts in every part of the world in 160 languages. And so this then we will then start to see the reward for all that work that went in, all of that hardship I put myself through in order to get this job completed. I could have given up, but I kept at it. And so this is where we are. And I've recently just set up a community, which is in its early stages, where we will be hosting that entire body of work and making it available to anyone in business. And uh, some of the courses in there will be 230 courses in there, expert level courses. Some of those courses would sell, if we were sold alone to people, they would sell for about $5,000 each. We will make those available to people within that community for just $180. So this makes it accessible to a lot more people. But if somebody can't afford that, then they can just refer five other people to join the community and they can have it for free. And they can do
Can I,
that with the
can I just
230.
ask you a quick question? Who is eligible to be in your community? Who would the community be targeted at?
It could be anyone in business, but ideally it's someone with a business that's established. So in other words, if it's someone who's brand new to business, there's 90% of brand new businesses will fail because it isn't the right thing. There's various reasons. So it's best if someone's got a little bit of traction in their business. They're on a path that they know they want to continue and
Mhm.
they're ready to grow it. So we would say ideal is 1 to 20 million in revenues, but sometimes you've got people that may be doing quarter of a million, and they'd be great, and they're on the right path. They know they're on the right path. They just need the right inputs. There are some people maybe with less than that. If it's a brand new business beginner, yeah, you get a lot of intellectual stimulation from it. You can get a lot from it, no question about it. But will you have the capacity to do it? If you're a new business that's set up by someone who has been in business before, has sold a business before, has got the experience, that's a bit different because you've probably made all the mistakes already. You know where you're going with this, and you'd really benefit from it if that is you. So ideally, I'd say established business, particularly one where you've got to a point where you cannot do it all yourself anymore. When you start out, you have to do an awful lot yourself. You have to wear a lot of hats. But when you get to the stage where it's not possible to be the best of every role that you have to be within the business and you need a bit of help, that's a really ideal time for somebody to get involved because we can just push you 5, 10 years ahead really rapidly by getting involved in it. And the community has a membership fee. It's $99 a month. But if you refer three other people join the community as a result of your referral, you get that for free. So you get the membership for free, and you can actually get the courses for free, which are expert level. And people tell me they are PhD level, but even a school leaver would understand them. So they are really comprehensive, and they're not like anything else out there. So yeah, so that really brings it really pretty much up to date. That's what I've been doing. I've had to overcome some very significant challenges along the way, and I've had to do things, create things out of fresh air many times. I've had to be very resourceful, which you do have to be. I've been through things I wouldn't wish on anyone, but I have found that when you go through really challenging situations, if you survive it, you become very resilient. I think that's really important. And what I have found is that people who go through challenges and difficulties, which I wouldn't wish on anybody, but on the other side of it, I would say that if you go through those kind of challenges or whatever challenges you face, they make you a better person. You're never going to get a challenge in life that you cannot actually win with. You will not be given a challenge in life that you can't beat. So you will be able to rise to the occasion if you put your mind to it. You'll find ways to do it. So you learn to be resourceful. You learn to do things you wouldn't do otherwise. You become a person you wouldn't become otherwise. You become an amazing person when you do that. And all the people I know that I respect the most, they've been through real difficult, challenging situations in their life. That's what's made them the people they are. Now, I wouldn't wish anything they've had to go through on that for them, except for the fact that ultimately they've become wonderful people as a result of doing that. They become much wiser. They become much more able to deal with things. They become much more resilient. I don't know if you've got any comments on that, Anthony.
Well, it reminds me of a statement that Nelson Mandela used to say that winning my battles makes me stronger. And the key is having the vision that is so strong, unshakable vision is what you had, that you will do what you need to do to go through it. And another person I follow is Les Brown. Said, if life knocks you down, it's not your fault. It's your responsibility to get back up again and again and again. And that's what your story seems to tell me, that you had lots of setbacks, but your vision was so strong that you got up again
Yeah,
and again.
yeah. Tell me
And
about it. I mean, if you can, well, I've had some things happen that I wouldn't wish on anyone at all, ever.
mm,
And I've had to deal with it at the same time as working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week with no breaks
mm.
and with no resources. Everything maxed out, where you think I have to be able to pay for this. How the hell am I going to do it? And I've seen abundance. But still, that abundance then goes into building something that is going to be much bigger, that's going to help a lot of people in the world, and yet, and put yourself into hardship doing it. But we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We've got something that's amazing that can really help a lot of people. We've got something amazing with this global deal, where this is going to be distributed in 160 languages all around the world, and this is going to reach hundreds of millions of people. Now, I never saw that coming. I never saw a path to achieving that. But because I had done it, because I put that together and the right people recognized it, that the opportunities have opened up.
But one of your values, it comes across is that you're making a contribution, you're not necessarily doing it for profit. You're doing it to make life better. And because
Yeah,
of the high standards that you've set, you've exceeded what most people would expect from your resources. Because I mean, people would resort to the business books that are in Harvard, and you're producing something which is higher standard than what Harvard has got. That is a very high standard you've got there. So we
yeah.
appreciate that. And
And I think anybody who sees it, they're absolutely blown away. I mean, I've known people who've seen the best in the world, and then I showed it to them and say, "Oh my God, this is better than anything else out there. You should be charging 20 grand per course, not 5 grand." Well, somebody can get it for $180 now, or they can get it for free if they just refer some other people. So it's a big difference. It's a big difference in the way it's all delivered. So that's really, and there's lots of things I haven't mentioned in the time, but that's I think a sketch of where I was and where I am.
excellent. Thank you for that. Well, I've got three questions for you. The first question I have for you is what specifically intrigued you about Uncovered that led you to commit to this project?
Okay, so there's a few things. Um, I only heard about it very recently, and I think what I'd say is this: you may not see this yet. I didn't see what I've just been talking about. I didn't see what was coming. I saw an awful lot of hard work, and I saw a lot of very difficult situations I had to overcome. Okay, we all have this in life in some
Hmm.
form or another, or I guess most of us do in different ways. So you may not see this yet, but your story has the power to shift the direction of someone else's life.
Hmm.
I think that is why Uncovered matters. I have never been drawn to flashy success stories, but I'm drawn to meaningful ones. I found that you meet someone and it's a meaningful connection. It's a whole different level. And the right stories will make a meaningful connection. The stories that are forged in silence, in struggle, the
Hmm.
kind of moments that most people never see. I know I've been inspired. Maybe I've been at a networking event where someone has spoken and they're very inspiring. And I thought about it quite often. The ones that inspire the most, they're telling you about the battles they fought, the difficulties they've overcome. That makes you understand at a deeper level who you're dealing with. It's not just superficial. They're not just trying to rip you off. They're not trying to take your money from you. They've become who they are forged through fire, if you want to put it
Hmm.
that way. So they've had the kind of moments that most people never see, that even fewer people will talk about. And what intrigued me about Uncovered was its commitment to telling the unvarnished truth, or at least this is my understanding of it, the unvarnished truth, but what it really takes to build something extraordinary. So it's not just a vanity project. But it's a legacy project. It's something that resonated with me on a profound level. And so you live through enough adversity, and then you realize that the most powerful success stories are not built on highlight reels. It's not all about the big successes. Usually behind that, there's other things. There's things that you've learnt to get to the point where you have that success, which are often not very easy. Often you want to give up. But these are built on scars, the scars that we form. And if there's one thing I know for sure, it is that your scars do not disqualify you. You may think when you're
Hmm.
going through it that it does, but it doesn't. They are what qualifies you. So it doesn't disqualify you, it qualifies you. Setbacks do not make you less worthy. They shape the person you need to become. And it's in the rising, it's not in the avoiding, it's in the
Hmm.
rising to the occasion that leadership is forged and great results will come. So when I was asked to contribute to the book, to me, it felt like an invitation. It was an invitation. It was an invitation not just to showcase what I've achieved, but also to acknowledge what I've endured. And I haven't even begun to tell you what those things are, but you get a slight
Hmm.
idea. And it also gives voice to the part of the journey that most people never talk about. I've built and I've sold global businesses. I've led turnarounds. I've scaled platforms. I've mentored entrepreneurs from nothing to 30 million, 60 million, 100 million, 240 million, even in one case, and more. But those aren't the moments that define me. Yeah, they're very impressive. It's very easy to think, well, that's okay for someone else. Maybe I could never do that. And I can't judge if you could or couldn't, but that's not what defines me. I found a way to help people do that, which is great. What defines me is the is actually the times when I've lost everything, when I
Hmm.
faced financial devastation, when my wife battling a genetic condition and severe behavioral conditions could no longer safely care for our son, which forced us to separate, not because we wanted to. She's in her field. She's at the top. She's one of the top in the world at her field, and globally known, internationally known in her world. But I had to separate from her. I didn't want to do that. That's how it was. Our son was separated from us. I had to rebuild from the ground up. I was in the middle of working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, unable to earn an income while this was going on. I had no revenue coming in. I had no home. I had living in a rented property, no transport because she'd gone and smashed my she did something that caused my car to be smashed up by a truck. Car was written off. My credit rating was such a bad condition I couldn't get a replacement car. So I then had to do very expensive rental cars for everything, which is crazy for long term. So I had to deal with all of these things all at the same time. I had to deal with potential eviction from the rented house I was in because the landlord wanted it back again, and I hadn't got the money to move. These are all at once, all of these things at once. So the point is, I'm not defined by the successes. I'm defined by the scars I've faced, the scars I've gained, the things I've had to deal with, the fact that I've had to battle multiple things simultaneously, and I had to rebuild build from absolute ground zero. All of these things, no safety net, just a quiet, unwavering decision to keep going, without applause, without recognition, because that was what was required. And I
Can
could
I ask you
see,
one question? When you're in
yeah,
your darkest moment, what kept you going? Because most people have given up. What kept you going?
number one, I do not dwell on it. Because
Right.
I'll give you a little, this actually is a very interesting question. Thank you for asking that, Anthony. Um, when I was about, I don't know, it was in my late teens, I think, I read somewhere that 93% of the things you worry about never happen. So
Yeah,
why are you wasting all your energy on worrying about it?
yeah.
Okay. And from that moment, I stopped worrying. So I thought there's no point in worrying. You just drive yourself deeper into a hole. So, yes, I had very big issues to deal with, but I have also something ahead of me that I'm trying to accomplish. And you do the best, and the timescales don't work as you want them to. And you've got to do it on fresh air a lot of the time. But it was just keep going, keep going, keep going, because I could see where this would go. I could see where I wanted to be. And I was driving towards it. Does that answer the question?
It does. It does. It's something I try to explain to people who, like my dad, like to worry a lot. It's focused on the outcome, not the process you're going through.
I meet people all the time who worry. I mean, people do I think it's
It's your focus, wrong
there's
focus.
lots of reasons for it, but I left it behind in my late teens. I just thought, what's the point? And I convinced myself, no, that doesn't mean to say I would never worry. If I've
Yes.
got to pay something for something that is really important and I can't, I might mildly worry, but it won't consume me.
You're focused on solutions rather
I'm
than
focused on the solution. Yeah,
what's
that's a good
blocking
way to
you.
put it. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that's why Uncovered also spoke to me because it wasn't just a chance to reflect. It's been very useful to me, just actually trying to capture on paper, some of these factors. But this was more than this. There's people who've given to me because they've told me about their issues, what they've
Hmm.
learned from it. That's helped me, and this is an opportunity to give something back to other people, to reach into the silence, to say to another man, to another woman, perhaps much younger, perhaps completely overwhelmed, you are
Hmm.
not broken, you are becoming. We're in a world where you have to
Yes.
become more self-sufficient. So I think we all can learn lessons from this. And I know what it's like to feel like you're falling apart when everybody else seems to be thriving. I know what it's like to carry a vision when carrying grief. I know what it's like to look like the strong one when everything, inside you is shattering. I know this. You are more capable than you know you are. You are more resilient than you realize, and you are not alone. You are not alone. And so you don't need credentials to lead. You don't need perfect circumstances. You don't need anyone's permission to rebuild your life. You just need the willingness to show up one more time than you fall. You need the belief, however fragile, that it's still possible to create something extraordinary from the ruins. And it is. It's always possible. And that is why I said yes to Uncovered, because it's not about promotion, it's about truth, it's about legacy, it's about meeting the next generation of leaders at the exact point when they feel the most lost and offering them a torch, not a lecture. And if even one man or one woman reads this chapter and they decide not to give up, if one son or one father or one struggling business owner sees a reflection of their own fight, maybe different
Hmm.
circumstances, maybe different
Yeah.
things they are battling, but if they can see in my story, and it gives them hope and they realize that there is a way forward, then every scar that you've picked up along the way was worth it. Every setback had a purpose and every word matters. And I believe we have a purpose in this life to actually accumulate these cards to learn from our mistakes, from things that happen to us, from whatever comes our way. We're
Hmm.
not given any challenges we can't win. And maybe just maybe that's how change begins. It's not with noise, but with honesty. It's not with ego, but with courage. It's not with perfect stories, but it's about real. It's about being sincere, genuine, real. And this is the thing keeps coming back. And in case you're wondering, I did get my son back, but I had to prove to the authorities that I was capable of looking after him on my own. And when
Hmm.
he came back to me, I had to give 100% of my time to him. I couldn't get any work done at all. Couldn't do anything to advance everything that was already years behind where I wanted it to be. But I had to do that because that is the same thing for him. And that made everything worthwhile actually when that happened.
Excellent.
And so you have these moments of joy, but it was another battle to fight. And believe me, it's a very difficult battle to fight. When you're fighting various authorities that
Mhm.
because his mum couldn't keep him safe, well, suddenly that means that I couldn't keep him safe because I couldn't keep him safe from his mum.
Yeah.
So, go figure.
Yes.
And when you ask for help, and there's supposed to be help there that help you in these situations, and they never come up with it, and they just keep asking questions, and every time you answer the questions, it goes to the bottom of the pile. Then weeks later, they ask you more questions, and nothing ever transpires. You think, well, what's the point of it all? So you just got to get on with it,
Yeah.
and I think that's my mantra: get on with it. Just get on with it. Look forwards. Don't look backwards. Don't dwell on it. Just go towards the horizon.
Learn the lessons from the past, not
Yeah.
be trapped in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. It's difficult for some people to do that. For me, I've always quite been forward-looking, so it's maybe not so difficult for me. But if you consciously try to do it and consciously try not to worry, because that takes an incredible toll on you. You
I
you
think it
know,
comes down to how you brand yourself, how you see yourself. Do you think you're worth the goal? Because a lot of people have goals, particularly when they're young, but then they lose the feeling that they deserve the goal or it will happen, and therefore their passion dies. And one of my mentors used to say to me, some people they're dead at 25. They're just waiting to the burial because their
yeah,
dreams have gone.
it's
They've
true.
been beaten out of them. And when you have something that is bigger than you or something that gives you passion that you're passionate about, it's easy to be sidetracked by life's daily problem because you it's bigger than your goal. When your goal is bigger than your problem, then it's easier to focus on that. But when the goal is smaller than your problem, then you get overwhelmed.
Yeah. And it's very easy to say it. You can say that and I can say that, and it's very easy
Mm,
to say it. But I think it's really also important. I think where this all comes together is that if you can hear a number of people saying it, then some of
mm,
it's going to stick. And it's going to convince you, someone somewhere is going to say something that makes you think, okay, I am going to do this or that. I'm going to stick with it. And if my voice can be one that
hmm.
helps you to do that, then I've done something that's worthwhile. And who knows? We have a purpose in this world. Most people don't know what it is. And if that is my purpose that I don't even know, then great. Then I can help people do that. And maybe it is, and I don't even know that yet. But possibly this is a channel for being able to do it in my own small way, to help someone else from small beginnings and from difficult circumstances create something that actually is amazing. And there are plenty of examples around the world. Perhaps one of my biggest heroes is a guy called Wang. I can't even remember his name. Wang Fengchu. But he started a company called BYD. Who it's just amazing what they've done. Amazing, amazing.
BYD was it?
BYD. Uh, Wang Feng Chu, I think it is. Wang Feng Chu. And his right hand lady is, oh goodness, I'm forgetting names at the moment. Stella Lee. Stella Lee. Oh, what an amazing woman! Wow, she just won the award as the most influential people in the car industry worldwide for 2025.
Mm.
Um, Amazing lady, just amazing. And their story of from going from nothing to, they'll be the biggest car manufacturer in the world by 2030. They're on the way there
Wow.
now, way well on the way. It's just amazing what they've done. Absolutely amazing. And so there's people like that who've done it from nothing. He was orphaned as a kid, orphaned as a kid and had a really bad, really terrible upbringing, really. And he managed to fight all the odds, and he's created this incredible setup that nobody can touch, years ahead of anyone else.
Excellent. Okay, well, I'm going to have this at part one of our interview. I'm going to stop it there. And I'm going to come back again. I might have to do the link again, or I think we can use the same link because I think I have to stop it.
There's probably bits you can